Namaste. Welcome to the 21st video in the overall series on Introduction to Sanatana Dharma. In today's video, I try to take two topics, science and spirituality, and see how they can kind of come together. For some people, these are extremely irreconcilable topics. They point in different directions. So some people think that scientists by definition should be atheists. For some, a philosopher and a scientist follow two paths, or let's say philosophy and science are two sides of the same coin, and or ultimately both are searches for truth. Just probably an approach is taken a little differently. I take a mixed view of both of these ideas as such. What you're seeing in the background, virtual background, is basically Sri Mahavishnu lying in his Yoga Nidra pose. And there is an infinite number of universes that burst forth into being and also get absorbed into him. Why this video and why the thumbnail that you saw, which is of Ardhanarishwara, you will get to understand as we proceed further. So these are two concepts that I will touch upon a little while we go ahead. So today's video is basically about trying to bring together science and spirituality, or more specifically, spirituality that is universal, but has been put forth through Vedic concepts, so to say. So basically, I want my viewers to have a thought at the end of this video. So this is basically food for thought. I want you to think and analyze to what extent whatever I am saying today in this video makes sense. Let's proceed. Let me start with a brief background and baseline. There was a discussion I had with an engineering batchmate on Facebook quite some time back. I later on blocked this person because of certain language that he had used, so I don't want to take any names. That discussion, what I had with him, rather it was, I had put some thoughts that I had in mind onto that discussion. Those thoughts kind of stuck with me. I don't remember whether I had ever blogged about this. And I have a friend, Sadiq. We go way long back. 11th and 12th is what we call intermediate in Andhra. So he's a batchmate from then. He's a friend from then. He did his MSc from IIT Kharagpur, interned in CERN. Today he's working in Europe in a pretty intellectual job, if I can say that, very highly technical job. I wish India had more jobs like that, but more roles or more work like that was done in India, that would have been awesome. But that's a separate topic. So basically, I had a long call with him a couple of days back on this topic. So he also gave me some feedback. In fact, he gave me an article which curiously echoes maybe 50% of what I will talk about in this video. I've given a link to that video in the sources and references. Now, the views in this article have nothing to do with his thoughts. He was kind enough to let me use his name, but the disclaimer is that the so-called extra scientific interpolations that are happening in this video are not what he subscribes to. Also, when I spoke to him, I realized something. When I was talking to him, I said that by definition, spirituality is beyond the realm of science, because science talks about things that we can grasp using our senses or intellect, obviously. And by definition, God or spirituality are behind these aspects of the five senses and intellect. So therefore, it is a little dishonest if I were to say that I will take science and my intellect and talk about God. First of all, that is unfair to science possibly. At the same time, in an earlier video, I spoke about a sentence called Yato vacho nivartante aprapte manasasaha. So Parabrahma is beyond intellect, senses, and description, right? So it is disingenuous if I were to say that I would use science or I would even be able to describe about God. However, I discovered that we can take certain concepts from these aspects of science and spirituality and kind of bring them together. There is a certain way that we can get these together. How? You will get to see as we go ahead. You be the judge of whether whatever I say today makes sense or not. Let me proceed. Now, let me first talk about certain things that science accepts today. There may be some differing schools of thought. However, whatever I'm talking about in this and the next slide are scientific. Okay, these are accepted according to science today. Couple of things. So there was a lady, her name is Emily du Châtelet. She was the one who proposed the law of conservation of energy. Now, why I mean a closed system is the law of conservation of energy applies to a closed system where there is no exchange of mass or energy with something outside, right? Obvious, that makes sense that as long as we take a certain closed system, the overall energy in that system is conserved. So there is no creation or addition or destruction of energy. It just changes form from one to the other. Now, what I've done in my video as part of my description, the extrapolation that I've done is I have treated entire creation as a closed system. I have taken, so my closed system is not just a box or a galaxy or even, it is the universe, the observable universe, the entire universe is my closed system. Then there's the famous E equal to mc square equation from Albert Einstein, right? That's mass energy equivalence. That basically talks about interpreting mass in the form of energy. That if there is a certain amount of, there's a certain quantity of mass, how much energy does it have? That is what the mass energy equivalence of Albert Einstein talks about. Then we learned about the wave particle duality, where whether it is subatomic level or at the day-to-day physical level that we can perceive, the gross level that we can see, macro scale that we can perceive, or at the quantum scale, matter exists as both a particle and a wave. It is just that at the macro scale that we are used to in our world, these changes, this dual nature is not perceivable. Then the Big Bang theory is an accepted scientific principle that there was a singularity, a point of, let's say, a zero radius, out of which there is something called the Big Bang happened, which gave rise to space and time. And there is also this concept of the Big Bang or the big crunch or the big rip. There's also something called the Big Rip. So it basically says there was a singularity, something burst forth out of it. That was the Big Bang. So some people say that after a point of time, there will be something called the Big Crunch, where everything will collapse again, and that will again give rise to another Big Bang. Some people say that because of dark energy, dark matter, this expansion will continue forever, and ultimately there will be something called the Big Rip. So some people talk about cycles, okay, of the Big Bang and so on and so forth. These are all scientifically accepted principles. And obviously, everything is made up of the same fundamental particles. And there is an equivalence between mass and energy. So particles and matter and energy. In fact, my friend sent me a link, which I have given in the sources, references, and further reading, that talks about this aspect to a small extent. Now, these are all scientifically accepted concepts. I'm not extrapolating anything. Also, if we continue further, today, modern science says that even empty space, so-called empty space, and I'm not talking about the Earth, if you go to outer space, what looks as hard vacuum has energy. That is what modern science says. Also, there are differences in what people accept as consciousness, or how this is, where this is centered, how is this born, what gives rise to consciousness, what is consciousness. There are different schools of thought on this. However, I don't think anybody will dispute the fact that we are conscious, right? We have consciousness. Now, the levels of consciousness, or what has consciousness or not, are all debatable topics within science. Okay, but that's a separate topic. Now, there's also, especially in quantum mechanics, there is the concept of observer, which says the outcome of an experiment will change depending upon whether it is being observed or not. Now, this concept of observer is a little different from what we understand. For us, when we talk about an observer, it actually means a human being who's sitting there and, let's say, watching it, right? That's not what necessarily science says. Just the act of recording or observing. So that observer can be human or non-human. It can be a machine. But science does say that at the quantum level, at least, the mere act of recording or observing something by a human being or by a machine can impact the outcome of that experiment. And there is also this concept of many world hypotheses, multiverses. These are all scientifically accepted concepts. Okay. Now, let me talk about a couple of things which Hinduism says, Sanatana Dharma says. Some of these were touched upon in our earlier videos. we have the core concept of Parabrahma, the three core aspects with regard to Parabrahma: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat, existence, Parabrahma just is. Chit, consciousness, that Parabrahma is pure consciousness. Then Ananda or bliss, that these are three defining aspects of Parabrahma, if there can be any. Then that everything that exists, whether space or time, is Parabrahma. Sarvam Brahmamayam Jagat. Kala is a form of Ishvara, Parabrahma. These are all concepts that Hinduism gives us. Also, it says that Parabrahma is just Sat Chit Ananda, just exists. At a point of time, there was a desire, kama, not lust, there was a desire. So there are the Sanskrit names, people may have heard of Kameshwara, Kameshwari, right? Creation came up because there was desire, where Parabrahma thought, let me experience myself. Please note one thing: observation always means there are two things. So I see you, I see an ant. So there are always two things: so the observer and the observed, right? So Parabrahma decided that I want to experience myself. That gave rise to Ishvara and the male and female aspects: Prakriti and Purusha, Shiva, Shakti, Narayana, Lakshmi, Rama, Sita, whatever you wish to call them. But the whole idea is this duality came about because Parabrahma there was a desire at the beginning that let me experience myself, right? Then the male aspect, Prakriti, Shiva, Purusha, Shiva, whatever you call, is said to be a silent observer, Sakshi, unchanging, doesn't react to anything, Sattvic, so to say. It just exists, doesn't do anything. The Rajasic aspect, the dynamic aspect, the energy aspect is Shakti or Prakriti, entire creation. These dualities exist in creation or exist as such. This is a concept according to Hinduism. This concept of dualities, Ishvara, Prakriti and Purusha, Shiva and Shakti. Okay, and this female aspect is the energy behind creation, and actually the entire creation is in a way feminine, is Prakriti, which is in turn dependent upon Purusha. In fact, these are indivisible. They depend upon one another. Like if you take a lamp and light, these are indivisible. You cannot take one away from the other, right? Or Kalidasa, there is a very famous shloka from Kalidasa: Vagarthaviva samprukta vagartha pratipattaye jagatah pitaro vande parvati parameshwaro. So he says that the way a word and its meaning are inseparable. I don't remember the exact the translation of every word, but the core concept is the way a word and its meaning are inseparable, Shiva and Shakti are inseparable. That is a core concept of Hinduism. The last nama of the Lalita Sahasranamam also, if I'm not mistaken, says Shiva Shaktaikya Rupini. It is the unity of Shiva and Shakti that exists everywhere. This is what Hinduism says. Now, it also says a couple of things, that there are 5 elements as part of Prakriti or creation. So obviously they are part of Prakriti. Now, out of these 5 elements, Akasha is the most subtle, is the primordial one. And out of Akasha, the rest of the 4 elements were born. Okay. I like to translate Akasha as space rather than sky. Also, time is Parabrahma's form, though he exists beyond it. Also, Hinduism says that the Chit concept pervades everything. So it is not just human beings or living beings that have consciousness, but that underlying concept of Chit or consciousness exists in creation across all aspects. Stones, galaxies, everything has that aspect of consciousness. Okay. Then now, if you look at the virtual background that I have, multiple universes exist as the divine pastime. It is just as pastime, Leela. Right? Then there are cycles of creation: merger, yuga, pralaya, srishti, sthiti. We spoke about these also earlier. These are all Hindu concepts, Sanatana Dharma concepts, which exist in creation, but were given to the world by Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. Now, we spoke about what are accepted as scientific principles. I also spoke about what have been given to us by Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, but are general principles of everything. Now, let me try to bring these two together. So, my observations. So, the scientific aspects is where Sadik restricts his concurrence to. He does not, these observations are my own. So that's a disclaimer. Now, what I am doing as part of my observations is, now let's take the law of conservation of energy, apply to the whole of a universe or across multiple universes also. If I take those as closed systems, energy plus matter is always conserved and exists, cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. That way, Sat Chit Ananda, Parabrahma, the Atma, the individual soul, the divine soul, Paramatma exist. They cannot be created. Nayam Hantina Hanyate from the Bhagavad Gita. This does not kill. This cannot be killed. Nainam Chintanti Shastrani. There are other shlokas like that. So this concept of existence being just there, energy, matter, overall, is my interpretation of the concept of Sat, the concept of existence. That way, now, so we saw that Akasha is part of creation, space. Out of space came time, and out of Akasha came the other elements, came creation. Now, let's take a group of human beings sitting in a room. All of us are made up of the same fundamental particles. Now, these fundamental particles are manifestations of energy. Even a vacuum, hard vacuum, has energy. That way, if we take a room of people, we basically have what look like discrete islands of consciousness. Obviously, there are 5 conscious human beings in a room. If you look at it from a fundamental level, there are 5 apparent islands of consciousness in space, right? Now you expand this to the entire universe. There is a sea of energy, a continuum of energy, because matter ultimately is a form of energy, or is a slightly different manifestation of energy. So if we look at it from a universe or a multiverse perspective, what you are basically looking at is a sea, a continuum of energy, where there are apparent islands of consciousness. So what I propose is, these are not apparent islands, they are just projections of the underlying Chit. Because Hinduism says that not only a human being, every living being, every non-living being has an element of consciousness or Chit in it. That is the extrapolation that I'm doing here. That what look, so let me reiterate this. Take a couple of human beings sitting in an area. Each of us is made up of the same fundamental particles, which are but manifestations of energy. We are separated by some space, which also has energy. So if I take just a room, there are what look like 5, let's say we have 5 people sitting in the room, 5 islands of conscious energy in space, right? I hope that kind of made sense. So there seem to be 5 islands of consciousness in a continuum of energy, that is this room. And I am expanding this, extrapolating this to the entire universe. There is a continuum of energy. Now, whether it is a human being, whether it's an alien, whether it's an ant, a bacterium, it is a continuum of matter, energy. And there are what look like islands. They are actually not islands. They are just visible projections of the underlying consciousness or Chit. Now, because this is energy, that energy is Shakti, because it is the energy behind creation. It is the actual creation. So, Shakti, energy, Prakriti, creation, the female aspects, the Chit part, the Sat aspect is the, you can say, the Purusha. Purusha and Prakriti, Sat and Chit are inseparable, are part of an entire whole. So this space, energy, matter, consciousness, existence are all parts of an inseparable unity, whether we talk from a scientific perspective or from a spirituality perspective. So if I talk from a science perspective, there is space. Space gave probably space and time, let's say, space and time. Space has energy, again, continuum of energy, consciousness. If I talk about spirituality, there is Sat, which just exists, Chit, consciousness. And this whole part, because there is energy, there is Shakti. That way, this indivisible Purusha and Prakriti, Shiva and Shakti, Sat, Chit, Ananda form entire creation, whether it is in terms of one universe or multiple universes. So, do you see how spirituality and science are different and same at the same time? They are different in some ways, but they are same in a different way. And this is yet another beautiful concept that comes out of Hinduism. Now, you may say, you started off saying they are irreconcilable, that yato vacho nivartante, all that hi-fi stuff that you spouted. Aren't you contradicting yourself? I'll come to that. So that's the reason I said that it is yes and no at the same time. There are differences, but there are similarities at the same time. When we talk about Parabrahma, there are three aspects, right? Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So right now, whatever we spoke, Sat and Chit, Shiva and Shakti, space, time, giving rise to energy, having energy, are all parts of an underlying unity, whether we talk in terms of spirituality or science. What I feel personally, happy if I'm wrong, is that modern science, what we call science, can never describe this concept of ananda or bliss. It is not simple happiness. So today, if I'm happy, science will say you have some endorphins running through your system. Remember that statement which says that falling in love is biologically no different from eating a bar of chocolate, because that state of being in love and eating a chocolate both release endorphins in your body and you feel happy, right? That is what science says. But now, the moment I say that is a bacterium happy, is a rock happy, that ananda is not a momentary thing. In fact, there is a Sanskrit term called I think Rama. One of the meanings is Ramaniyatvat. That Ramaniyata basically means happiness which is ever present but also ever different. So it is not the same. You will never get bored of that ananda, that bliss. So it is not. You remember. So it is not like a drug, right? So when people take drugs beyond a point, they get immunity. So they need to keep taking more and more. It is not like that. There is never boredom in this ananda, in this bliss. That is the meaning of the ananda in Sat, Chit, Ananda, and Parabrahma. So I don't think science can ever explain what this ananda concept is, especially if you extrapolate it to a non-living thing or to the universe as a whole. I don't think science can ever reconcile that or explain that aspect. So while Sat and Chit can probably still be uh, spoken about in the same breath as space, time, creation, energy, matter, I think Ananda will always remain a little separate, and that will always remain behind or beyond the realm of science. So, as I said, I hope you think about what I said. I hope what I said made sense, and I hope in my own way, I was able to bring two things, science and spirituality, together and explain how they are different and at the same time, the same things. Thank you for watching this video. Stay safe. Namaste.